Hello, self-starters, problem solvers, creative outside-the-box thinkers, and community builders. We need this like water. We need to gush, flow over dips and dives and thrive. We need patience, unconditional love, that authentic when you're down, we're still around type vibes. And you know that self-love should gush and flow over dips and dives. Thank you, young birds. I apologize. The older bird is here to help you realize your time to blossom, rise, revise, and then climb as high as the sky. Don't be shy. No time to compromise. Your anxious thoughts are just lies. With that poem, I'd like to introduce you to this podcast, specially made for Positive Impact Ventures, helping you find your way through the external funding journey as a new entrepreneur or new nonprofit board member. Bird's Eye Impact, where positive ideas take flight. I am Dr. Latoya Hinton. I'm proudly neurodivergent and happy to spread positivity, optimism, and nourishment to advocates for positive change. I want to bring hope and encouragement to folks who are just starting out with their own business or just starting their journey in nonprofit management. I'm a grant writer, researcher, instructional designer, and data analyst. I'm the perfect matchmaker for strategic partnerships that sustain growth and resilience in trying times. Building long-term sustainable relationships with neuro-affirming organizations.
Of Bird's Eye Impact, where positive ideas take flight. And actually this time around, I have Eliana Bravos as our guest. And she is the co-founder of ND Connect, and she actually is co-owner of a LinkedIn group with me called Neurodivergent Women Leaders Creative Mentorship and Support. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Eliana and let her introduce herself in a little bit more detail, and then we'll get into the episode.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Latoya. It's always so hard knowing what to say when people ask you to tell them about yourselves. But yeah, I think for ND Connect, for our goal is really to build like a pro-social social platform that helps neurodivergent people get unstuck through genuine connections, through our own journeys as neurodivergent people. I think that we've learned quite a lot. For one, a lot of social media is not designed with our best interests in mind. So how do we create a place that's really pro-human from the beginning of our design process? That doesn't prioritize like doom scrolling or endless engagement, but it instead helps you build genuine connections with other human beings. And then another thing is, it can be really lonely and isolating, I think, and it can be hard to know where to start when you're stuck, whether it's like a small problem in your life, like maybe I struggle with staying hydrated, and that's like been like a constant kind of like small problem in my life that's not causing like major issues, but when I am hydrated, it's really nice not to have headaches all the time.
Yeah.
Or whether you've been unemployed for a few years, maybe you're stuck in your career, maybe you don't know what's next for you, maybe you're just like it's like that like emotional somatic feeling of being stuck. And whether it's connecting with people and the emotional energy that comes from that experience, whether it's playing with other people. I think play for adults is very underrated as a way of being able to have fun and again build that momentum and get clarity on what you're looking for. Whether it's connecting with the right people with the right perspectives and advice, or maybe it's connecting with the people with the right connections that can help you get your foot in the door, whatever that means and looks like for you. So yeah, that's our goal, and we've been building it for 2 years now, and I'm really excited about what's to come. But more tangibly, we really connect people with others for like mentorship and peer support, or peer mentorship, I guess is the best word for it. And also people find like friends and just community on the platform.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So first of all, like I'm on ND Connect, and obviously that's how I met you. I was referred to the platform by a career counselor. Um, her name is Katie Umel. And I actually met Katie Umel because she was commenting on Rosie Jung's posts on LinkedIn, and so it was like this chain reaction kind of thing that got me interested in learning more about ND Connect. I joined the platform and it was just super easy to connect with people. I have some accountability buddies that I meet with every week from ND Connect, so I can't underestimate how life-changing and enlightening that was for me, like because I'm late diagnosed neurodivergent. I definitely, as Eliana mentioned, I was in that career transition where I really didn't know what my next steps were, and it was a great space to feel supported. So I just want to tell you thank you for all of the work that you're doing, and it's great to be able to showcase and highlight all of this positive impact that you're making in the neurodivergent community, but also in the public as a whole. Like, creating these empowering spaces really allow us to be our best selves no matter where we are. And it's really important to point that out as well. So this is just super exciting. I'm just like so happy that you've taken the time to speak with me today. So how did you just like decide to get together with your colleagues and found a social enterprise for and by neurodivergent adults?
Yeah, so oh my gosh, it's kind of a long story. So I'm going to try and give more of the Sparks Notes version of it. But me and one of my co-founders actually started another like nonprofit together. Like, we were still in high school, and we wanted to be like a grassroots kind of organization that helps neurodivergent young people. And so we were doing a lot of work there on like supporting mostly like high school neurodivergent students, or maybe like earlier like college students in kind of navigating like job market type stuff or building relationships with each other. We had like a supported youth like leadership program that we ran in the community as well, and different events. And so that's like where it started, and that really arose from like a couple neurodivergent people in the community coming to us and being like, hey, like, you know, we've heard a lot of different job search support programs, and there's not a lot of resources out there, but there's also not a lot that's like worked for us. We noticed that a lot of the programs in the community at the time were very like upskilling focused. So people would go through these like employment programs. A lot of them were unfortunately pretty neuronormative as well, where it'd be like, you know, the way to get a job is to make more eye contact in an interview. And, you know, of course, it's like a personal choice how much people want to mask or, you know, try and like, you know, go down that pathway. But it was very much coming from a place of like, you are lacking communication skills or you are lacking social skills. And we didn't really believe that. We believe that people are like whole and often very skilled, like as they are, and there's like a different problem, right? I know like one problem that we identified is just like the emotional energy that comes with job searching. Like, it's a really draining process. You can feel really in your head about it. It can be hard to just sit down and like look at your resume and like feel good about yourself. And then just like the executive functioning around like, okay, now I'm gonna like apply to a bunch of jobs. Like, it's a really emotionally taxing process. And so we noticed that even just having like an accountability buddy, just somebody there, like a peer on a call, like while you do that, can make such a big difference in you actually getting that thing done. And I think that that came from like our own experiences kind of navigating some of that stuff as well. But anyways, I was working, supporting some different people and looking for work. And one person who came was a U of T engineering graduate. But even though he graduated from such a hard program, super, super skilled person, he was not able to find a job for, I think, like 10 years after graduating. So like really like huge contrast between this person's you know, super, I don't know, cool engineering background and being super skilled there, and then like, I don't know, being like autistic and really struggling to navigate like a very neuronormative job market. And he had also tried a lot of different programs, and a lot of them were also very much like, you just need more skills. And I was like, this person does not need more skills. Like that is really not the issue here, right?
Yeah, it was the opposite of what this person needed.
Right? Yeah. Like this person does not need to go through like yet another, like, this is how you make a resume program, okay? But and I'm not saying that like none of those programs are helpful or anything like that. Like I do think that the career coaching can be super helpful. But one of the things that we kind of noticed was like through talking through a lot of people who would come to us would be like, yeah, one is a lot of people didn't feel like the supports that they were receiving were very neurodiversity affirming. So, you know, there was like a big disconnect between being a neurodivergent person and navigating the job search in a way that works for you, and like a lot of like more neurotypical centric advice around like how you should be doing it, or you know, how people should be. And like I think our framework was a lot more empowering for a lot of people because we really came from like the fundamental perspective that there's no one right way to think behavior exist. And so, you know, it's not like a you problem when you're not making eye contact, right? Like there's like a relational disconnect that's happening, kind of going through that like double empathy problem stuff. Yeah. Anyways, so that was one thing. And the other thing was just when I was working to support this person, I was like, I've like helped like other people find work, but I don't know if I'm the best person to help this person find work. And a big reason why was because like I'm not an engineer. I have no connections or networks in engineering. I don't know like basically any other engineers. I don't know like the industry language. I don't know the industry norms. And so what might work for me as like a psychology graduate, it's not the same, right? For somebody with an engineering background. And the like everybody who was supporting this person previously came from a much more similar background to mine. So there was like this kind of like gap between, you know, what this person's skills were, and then you know, just having like even like the network or like social capital in the right spaces to be able to help somebody get their foot in the door. And so then I was sitting there and I was like, okay, like who is like the best person to help this person, right? Like there's like the neurodiversity piece and then there's the engineer piece. And I was like, okay, of course, like an autistic engineer. So I was like going on LinkedIn, and then I was very manually doing this process where I was like, okay, you know, autistic engineer. And you know, I was able to find like a couple results come up, and I'm sure if I searched it now, like more
really
people
proud of being autistic, and like they want people to know about that on LinkedIn, but there are other people who are not
exactly
that forthcoming with their neurodivergence. And
and so I think if you search that kind of keyword now, you will get more people, but still the vast majority of people are not openly neurodivergent online because it does introduce like stigma and bias and like whatever else, right? So then I was like, you know, and it was also like still like this like kind of like weird like manual process, especially now. Like I feel like with LinkedIn, before I think it used to be easier to connect with new people because you would like every single person on the platform would be able to send like, I don't know, like 100 personalized connection requests a month, and now they've changed it to like 5 unless you have like premium, sales navigator premium, right? So I think I don't know. I personally, my opinion is that it was also easier to network on LinkedIn previously compared to like now, just with like their own changes. But anyways, I'm a little bit on a tangent. But the point was that like I was like going through and I was searching like autistic engineer and trying to like sift through results, and like it wasn't that like helpful information on people's profiles. And I was just like, wow, like there has to be a better way. Because that peer mentorship has been super helpful for a lot of people, but it's really hard to access. Anyways, like I just kind of kept helping this person out. I think that they did end up having a conversation with an autistic engineer, which gave some helpful perspective, and then like they were able to get a job eventually, which was great. And then I like had this idea for Endy Connect, but I was like, I'm not a technical person, I don't know what I would do. And then I just kind of like, it was like an idea, and I just kind of like sat there and I was like revisiting it, and I'd like work on it, like, you know, I applied to like an innovation challenge, like I would like be thinking about it, but it wasn't something that I like was taking seriously or really actively working to develop. In large part because I didn't feel like I had like the capacity or skills to do it at the time. I was also a university student then, And so I was like, oh my gosh, and I was struggling with my own mental health. So I was like, oh gosh, like
it just felt overwhelming at that time. Yeah.
exactly. And then I was like, okay, cool. And then in university, I was having, as I just mentioned, some like really bad, like negative, like mental health experiences. And I was really like struggling in like a lot of different ways. But I think just the academic institution wasn't always the most like friendly to like my own brain's needs.
Yeah.
It was like a very like high pressure environment, and like, it was a very big change for me as well, a big transition. And like I was and then I went in for the first time for like, more of like the mental health challenges. And then, my doctor thought I had ADHD, and I was like, she's like, what? Like, I don't think I have ADHD. But then, she referred me to a specialist. And like, after like the very first meeting, he was like, you definitely have ADHD. I was like, oh, okay. So
the same thing happened to me. Like, it's so weird. Like, but I was just like bringing up some topics. Like, I was like, I really rely on routine and like a lot of structure. And I was like explaining things, but I went deeper in that, than just those couple of things.
Absolutely.
I remember like my one-on-one therapist was like, after one session, like it all kind of clicked in her mind. And she was like, no one's like offered you like to get on medication before. Like, this is, and it's just such an interesting thing, like that folks get overlooked, especially folks that are like presenting as women. Like, it's just still one of those things where you have to do maybe a lot more talking, and they need to do a lot more observation in order to kind of come to the conclusion that you really do need help. But I think that peer mentorship and being around other people who have had similar experiences also help in that, right? Then you have the ability to start that dialogue, start that conversation. And if you're not in those peer mentorship groups, it's very hard to approach the conversation at all, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly like where my story is going here, because then it was like, so I got this ADHD diagnosis, I'm like really struggling, and I was like, okay, and now what, right? So it's like I have this like new like, like identity label, but I like didn't really know like what to do with it. And then like I was still really struggling like with school. And I was still struggling with like self-care and just like feeling hope for the future around like, what are like the future possibilities here. And then I ended up meeting a mentor of my own completely by accident who also had ADHD. And we didn't even know the other person had ADHD at the time, but we just really clicked. And it was like she was like inside my head, where all her advice was just so helpful. And it was one of the very first times that I felt so understood by another human being in my life. And I just remember that like feeling being so transformative, because it let me just like almost like a sigh of relief, where I was like, wow, like this person like gets me. And the advice that she gives me, maybe it's not like 100% perfect, but it's way more likely to work. Like the hit rate is way higher. And it's also advice that like I don't just like read on the internet when I search, like, it's not like the generic, like get a planner kind of advice, right? Like it feels like it actually understands me as like a holistic human being. And she was in my industry. So it was really, really helpful in connecting me with other people and like building like my network. It was really helpful in me like thriving more in my coursework and getting access to opportunities that I otherwise wouldn't have had access to. But the most important piece of it was just being able to talk to her and seeing somebody who was like me in so many ways, figuring out how to live a good life on her terms. As a student who was really struggling with my mental health, that gave me such hope for the future. And that's something that I really, really needed at that point in time. And so coming away from that experience, I was like, wow, like mentorship like really, really matters. Like this idea that I've been kind of like sitting on, like, am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? Like it's important. And so many other people don't have access to connections like these, and they're really hard to find. So how do we take these like life-changing connections and democratize access to them, so like every person can find, that peer, that friend, that mentor, that champion that's really going to help them move forward in their life and do the things that they want to do. One person in our community sometimes people give us like little testimonials and stuff. And one person said, this community gives me the social relationships to do what I want to do. And I think that that's exactly like such a beautiful way of saying it. But, I think we all need each other as like human beings. But yeah, especially now, like a days, I know we're like supposed to be more connected, but a lot of times we're even more isolated than we were before.
Yeah. And it's like, that's one of the things that I really love is that you guys are really real about that we're not gonna just like throw a whole bunch of technology at people and think like it's going to fix like all of their problems, because there are some things that clearly having technology, having tools do help you. And neurodivergent people have talked about like how some of these can create supports, a lot of people, it is controversial with AI, but a lot of people talk about
absolutely
how like there are certain AI tools that help them with executive functioning and things like that. So I definitely think that, but I love that about ND Connect that you guys always talk about how it's not just throwing any technology at an issue, but it's really having that back and forth dialogue about what is really going to be helpful, what is really going to be, and I love how you said democratizing, like what's going to create more access for more people that really need it, in terms of this peer mentorship. And so you're designing the technology with that in mind. So I love that about ND Connect, that you guys aren't doing anything that isn't intentional and that doesn't require a lot of in-depth feedback from the people who need it most, right? That are part of the community. So I admire that. I think that is awesome. How do you expect your positive impact will spread in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I think right now, we've really been like working hard to just understand what the core, like, what are like the core things that help people connect with each other in genuine ways, and what are like the different dimensions of things that help people get unstuck. Maybe it's listening to the right advice or perspectives from other people who understand you. Maybe it's the emotional energy that comes from connecting with other people. Maybe it's entering like a playful space and having like an awe-inspiring experience that makes you feel more momentum and that helps you keep going. Maybe it is connecting with somebody who has the right network that can help you more like practically get your foot in the door. So we've been kind of like thinking about all those different realms and thinking about like what are the ways that we can create like a playful human experience where people are able to realize their dreams or do the things that they want to do, big and small, through human connection. And so we've kind of built out like the core, like most basic version, I would say, of our platform right now that's been like working to help people connect. And now we're in this kind of like fun kind of experimental stage where we get to see, okay, like what does it look like when we put people together in like peer mentorship groups, and how do we structure that in a way that's going to be supportive? How can we create like one-to-one connections for people in a way that's going to create almost like structured serendipity, and what impact does that have on people's lives? I just read a really good article on a research project that looked at what happens when people talk to strangers for 30 minutes, and a lot of people go into that thinking that they're going to feel bad, but like most people feel much better after that interaction, even if those people are very different from each other. So like, looking at like different things like that and thinking about how do we create like these really like playful connection experiences that help people feel good in their lives and, feel like they're thriving. So that's really fun. And I'm really excited for this chapter. And then I think we're also looking to just kind of, bring it to more people. Because for a long time, I think we weren't talking about ND Connect very much on the internet because we didn't feel ready to grow. Like we wanted to start with like a smaller group of people and build really intentionally like with that group of people so that we have something that like works for like a bunch of different people. Maybe some people who tend to be like excluded from a lot of like traditional like tech design thinking. I really like the concepts of like design justice and designing for the margins, where you don't just think about like the majority, but you think about, the people who are often like not thought about, and how do you build like with them to create an experience that then supports, everybody. So anyways, I think now we're at a point where we can actually start like slowly growing it more like outside of that group, which feels good, because I think that we are, of course, still like, experimenting, iterating, like trying to make it better for people, but I think we do have something that's like good enough that we feel like to start talking about it more like widely now. And so I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone a little bit and do some, social marketing and just like talking about what we do. But it is a scary step sometimes to like take what you've built and then, like, I don't know, cast a wider net and put it in front of more people. So yeah, my goal though is for, if we've had some people have like really, really positive stories and experiences, and we've been hearing those stories more and more. I really appreciate you sharing one of your stories at the beginning too. And so because it is having that positive impact, I think it is important to like spread it so more people can see.
Expand it. It's totally worth it. It's totally worth it to expand it, because I do feel that you can make a larger impact. Yeah. Because I mean, if you think about it in terms of the positive impact that you're already having, then you could just grow that,
Right.
And I think to be able to reach more people would be awesome. And it's social media. it's such a strange space, right? Because your people are there on these other platforms, but it's about like, how do you do it in such a way that it's intentional and people realize the differences, right? Like the differences of what it is that you're offering. Because I feel like that's a huge thing, especially because you guys are free from the parameters of what's already been established, right? And so that's something to always try to lean into a lot as you're talking about what it is that you do on traditional social media platforms, I would say.
Yeah, I think too, like I always have such a complicated relationship with traditional social media platforms, because one of the reasons why I'm motivated to start like a more pro-social social platform is because, a lot of these other platforms are designed to get you to like doom scroll and just like engage for the sake of engaging. And that's, of course, there's like beautiful human connection happening across different platforms. I've met some really cool people on LinkedIn. I really appreciate it, but I am somebody who's very susceptible to doom scrolling, and so I'll use like screen time limiting apps for like these apps that are more designed to like keep you, addicted. And I'm like, hey, well, like I don't want to contribute to this like doom scroll problem if I'm producing content. So for me, it's, I think I'm finally feeling more ready to do it. But I honestly, for the past like year, I've been like thinking about like, how do I do this in a way that feels like aligned to my values and where I feel like I am, contributing to people's lives and not just like, adding more noise in this like attentional economy ecosystem. So
so true. Like how not to fall into the pitfalls of social media and do like more harm than good. Like like that's always sort of the tension. But I don't know, it's so refreshing, Eliana, when you find people that are on the healing end.
Yeah, for sure.
And I definitely see ND Connect in the healing realm for neurodivergent folks. So I don't think that you're doing more harm.
No.
I think it's about just getting the word out about why you're doing things differently, and why it's critical to galvanize other neurodivergent people and help them to understand that there is a different way to do social media. I think that's super, super critical. I was going to ask you, where do you typically look for strategic partnerships that align with your vision and values? Because we have been talking a lot about how you knew some neurodivergent people and then they helped you to found ND Connect. and you also have met a lot of really cool people on traditional platforms. Like, how do you normally find strategic partnerships?
Yeah, I mean, for like my co-founders, one person I just worked with him for like, I don't know, like more than 5 or 7 years or something like that. It was like a very long time. And then it was just like a wonderful working relationship. And he's somebody who I respect the most and like I would honestly trust with my life. Like I don't know. And I really appreciate that relationship. And so, that was really, really wonderful. And then I actually did post just on LinkedIn, like a posting looking for another co-founder. Because we were looking for some more like front end and like design like support at the time. And I talked to like a bunch of different people. For me, like values and being clear on like what my values are and like being very like purposeful about like what exactly we're building and like the why. I think that the why matters a lot more than like the what and like the how of how we get there. Although those things are of course important too. And so there's like these like there's this resource and I can link it, but it's like 50 like questions to ask a potential co-founder. And so I wanted to do like a baseline. Okay, like I really want to start a co-op, like a cooperative. I did like a bunch of research into different like organizational structures and cooperatives. I think are, especially ones that are at least in part worker owned, often have much more like just outcomes for workers and often for the people that like are like using or part of like the consumer end of like the cooperative as well. And so I really, really fell in love with that model. And I wanted to try doing that. And then that was a really good like values barometer, I think, from like a startup's perspective. Because like we have like investors that were like, I would invest in you if you were not a co-op. We had an acquisition kind of offer actually. And it was great, but it meant like changing our structure from a cooperative and like losing a lot of that like ownership. And that wasn't something that we were like willing to do because we really wanted to do like right by our community. And so we didn't want we always want to set up our organization in a way where the incentives are aligned so that the people that we are building for are neurodivergent people themselves, not like advertisers, not businesses, not like, any like other person being like that, like primary like voice.
Yeah.
And that's also why we committed to being like completely ad free and like never selling anybody's data. And like, of course, like very, very different from like the model of Facebook or whatever other platforms, right? And so I think just being really clear on that and like looking for that alignment. And I think the other thing is just like experimenting with working together. Like what are like little tests that we can do of like how we work together and like the relationships can evolve over time. So like with like my co-founders, for example, we like trialed working together and we saw like what it was like and we talked about it and had a lot of conversations around like how we communicated, what supports we all need, like how is this working? And of course our relationship has evolved a lot over time, but I think just starting and being very explicit about your values is a really good step. And then otherwise I think just having like complementary skills is something that I really look for in strategic partnerships. It's like, how do we move this forward? What's the impact going to be on like the people that we really care about when we're building this? And just kind of going from there. So that's sorry, was the question where, not what do you look for?
No. I feel like you were on topic. You totally were on topic. Because it was just like, where do you typically look for strategic partnerships? And,
okay.
And I feel like you answered it pretty well.
I can jump in and just add like a couple, like where more like practically, I would say like, like definitely talking on LinkedIn and posting on LinkedIn has been a great place for connecting with people. Just like naturally through like your work as a founder. Like I talk to like a lot of different like neurodivergent people and like, you just like hear about things and get to know people and you build relationships like organically and authentically with people. And then like, you like each other and feel like you're aligned as human beings and then you decide to kind of like work together. Like of course like researching and like reaching out to organizations. I think one of the pieces of advice I would give is a lot of people when they're networking are like nervous about like reaching out to other people. And like most people are like 95% of the time, I feel like people are like really happy. Like when you reach out to them in an email and be like, oh my gosh, I think your work's so cool. Can we just like get on a call and like talk about it? You know, like I'm always happy when I receive emails like that, especially when it feels like there is some like values alignment and they're like being like conscientious of that and the way that they're connecting with me. I'm like, yeah, like let's do it. And so I think that, you know, that's a good place to start. People are very open to meeting and talking and helping each other, which is really wonderful.
I agree. I think that I definitely had that hurdle in the past where I felt like people are going to judge me, or I have to like overthink how to open the conversation. But I think just like the values and vision themselves, like if they already align, then you already have things to talk about. And like so it's sort of like just find that first, right? Find that alignment first, and then move from there. I know we're short on time, so I just wanted to ask you like one more question.
I can stay a little bit longer. I messaged my team and just let them know. I realized it's an internal team meeting, and I was like, I'm talking to somebody right now. I'm not sure if I'll be a little bit late, so maybe we could try and end by like 6:15. Is that okay? We can get through a couple more questions quick if that's good for you. But like,
yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I'm stick with like one more question. I know myself, like I'll totally do tangents and stuff, and I don't want to keep you for very long, especially because it's the evening as well, and I'm
sure.
like
Sounds good.
But yeah, I had just one more question about external funding. So like what sorts of external funding sources have you gained since you founded your organization? And you said like you have been building this community for 2 years. And so maybe you could just like elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely like we've all worked other jobs while building this for different periods. Like sometimes it's like all three of us working other jobs, and then it's two of us working other jobs or whatever. So that was something. And then just especially at the beginning, like I don't know, like it's hard, and it is like it's hard to balance sometimes. I think like the amount of like we're lucky because we're like a more of like a tech startup, so there's not a lot of external capital we need, but we do need like labor, you know, and like our own like cost of living and stuff. And so just getting creative about different ways to meet that and trying hard not to burn out, like balancing another full-time job while we do it. We're very fortunate to get some grant funding from cooperators. I will always shout them out as an amazing organization. They have two different grant funding programs over here in Canada. One is a cooperative development fund. So since we're a co-op, that like aligned really well, and they like really support co-ops and you know developing in different ways. And then the other one was like a social impact grant from them. Super helpful to us, like wonderful people to work with, like super aligned, and they really trust, like once they've like given you funding, one of the things that I really appreciate is they really trust like your team. And like your team's like expertise and like how to like deliver that. And I think sometimes in the nonprofit space, especially, like it's tends to be very like, I don't know, you have to like, kind of like fight tooth and nail for like any change you want to make when like you get new information.
Or they feel, or maybe it feels like they're micromanaging a lot of what you're doing. And so like you talked a lot about like your impact reports. And did you feel like you could create some of your own criteria that you wanted to track? Okay.
I think cooperators, like hands down, like incredible organization, and like very, very grateful to them. I think their team is just wonderful, and they really genuinely care, and I think that like really comes through. What else was I gonna say? And then we did a couple like pitch competitions or like innovation challenges or like that kind of stuff. We were seriously considering looking for like investment funding, and we were in like conversations with some different angel investors and like different like investment firms or whatever, like venture capitalist people. But then like we're a co-op, and like I didn't realize how hard it would be to get like investment, and how like the incentives do not often align between cooperatives and like traditional investment pathways. And so that was like really, really great learning for us. Again, like I think that we would have been a lot more successful securing investment if we were not a cooperative. But with our values of like wanting to like retain control and ownership for like the people that are actually doing the work and like all that kind of stuff, I think it wasn't the best fit for us, given like wanting to be very like social impact focused. Like I think that like us receiving investor funding from many like traditional VC routes would have created like bad incentive structures. And so we were very intentional about that as a team. The one exception, and we did not end up going through with like through that pathway, but one group of people I really want to shout out because I think they're doing really wonderful work is the USeed Fund out of the University of Calgary. They're a social impact team. I think they like, at least when I spoke to them, like really, really care. They've invested in a cooperative before as well. They like, I think that they're really like innovating on some like investment models that makes it a lot more like social impact friendly. And I think that they're doing really cool work. But at least in the Canadian landscape, I don't think that there's like that much else like them out there. But I would definitely say they're cool. And you know, like if we needed that amount of capital investment in the future, I would definitely like reach out to them and like have a conversation with them again and see if that's something that makes sense for both of us. But yeah, I think that they're wonderful too. But yeah, being in this kind of like social enterprise space can be hard sometimes because there's not like that many grants for you as there are in like nonprofit charity spaces, but then also like many investors are like, you're not like a startup that's gonna give us like a 10x like unicorn return on our investment in the next like however many years. So, you know,
so it's tricky, right? Like it's tricky with the structures that exist. And it like when you're trying to do something that is really human first and you really are concerned about the social impact side of your mission and vision, and you're not putting like profit first necessarily, like it's tricky, right? It's kind of a tricky space. But I love to hear about USeed. I love to hear that the structure for investing is shifting, so that like there is this awareness that there is a need for more social enterprises, and that people are trying to kind of break the mold on you know, maybe what was expected in the past. And I think there's something to say about sustainability.
Yes. And that's the other thing I was gonna say too, is that I think the fact that we realized pretty early on that we weren't going to get like 4 million US dollars and like investment funding or whatever, you know, like, you know, thinking about the very, again, like the very traditional like startup model for people who do pursue that kind of path. Like I think it helped us create an organization where we were very like lean and like we were like getting creative with like how do we make this work, but we also had to be like revenue generating much sooner than like a traditional startup would, which I think helps us be sustainable long term. And that's our goal, is to really not like do this for like a few years and then get like an acquisition or whatever else. Like our goal is to really steward this space for, you know, 20, 30 years, like, you know, like have it be like a space that's like other people can then like kind of take on and like, you know, is supporting like future generations as well. You know, how do we create and build something that has longevity? And I feel like that's not something that is talked about very often, like outside of more of like the social impact spaces. But I think that the fact that you do have trouble getting more external funding can sometimes be like a positive, because then you are forced to think about this in a much more, I don't know, business minded way. As like maybe silly as that sounds, you have to think about it like, how do we actually make this sustainable and not just rely on just external funding? So I don't know. I think for us that was kind of helpful because it forced us to think about it.
Definitely. And it's something that's been going through my mind for a really long time. And it's hard for me sometimes to put it into words. But I feel like you did it in such an eloquent way that, thinking about the long term and not thinking automatically about acquisition can create sustainable teams as well, because I see a lot of startups kind of being like, we just need people for this time period, so because then we're going to get to this stage and then we won't really worry about our team, right? Like there is like that sense, like probably other people who are watching this are like, if they've ever worked in a startup environment, like yeah, a lot of flags are going off in their mind right now and being like, yeah, like that actually is an issue when you're trying to create like a safe work culture. Is that things happen really rapidly, but then it's also very quick and people are not always thinking about the long term. And so it's great to hear you say that you've been really, really intentional about, yeah, let's do this for the next generations. Like this isn't just a 5-year plan so that we can then, get acquired and then, not worry about the original people who, created the whole concept. And like, yeah, so there's something about that people first way of decision making that is definitely serving you, and it's very refreshing, and I'm just so happy to hear it from your point of view. And I just want to thank you for coming and chatting with me today.
No, thank you so much for having me. And like, I know that you're always somebody who's in my corner too, thinking about like long-term partnerships and people you love working with. Like, if we ever needed more external funding, you would be like the first person I would be like, hey, please, thoughts, perspectives. And so I don't know, just for anybody listening, I definitely encourage them to reach out to you too, because you are very, very wonderful. And like, I feel like you approach this from a very like holistic way and are very like impact focused while thinking about that sustainability piece, which is very, very valuable. So I don't know, I've always learned so much from our conversations, and I just wanted to say thank you for that too.
Thank you so much, Eliana. Okay, well, if you want to hear anything more about ND Connect, in the comments I will have the information for if you like want to join the community. I'll also add like our LinkedIn group in the comments if you are a neurodivergent woman leader, founder, and would like to join our mentorship and support group on LinkedIn. And then just, like stay in the loop and follow Toybird Positive Impact Funding online. I'll have the link there, and follow us for more episodes if these topics resonate with you. And thank you so much. Bye.